The Invisible Man, 2020, is one of those movies that sneaks up on you, literally and emotionally, like a toxic ex who somehow still knows your Wi-Fi password and shows up uninvited at 3 a.m. Because from the very first shot, Lee Hwanel decides we are not going to breathe comfortably for the next 2 hours. And honestly, we don't, because this film is a masterclass in paranoia, gaslighting, and that terrifying feeling of knowing you're right, but having absolutely no way to prove it. And it all begins with Cecilia Cass breaking out of the world's most stressful relationship in the middle of the night. Creeping through the futuristic glass and concrete Batcave, her abusive genius boyfriend Adrian Griffin calls home, holding her breath like she's defusing a nuclear bomb, while also praying the dog doesn't bark, alarms don't go off, and Adrian doesn't wake up and ask, "Why are you sneaking around like you're the main character in a horror movie?" Because Cecilia knows one thing: if she doesn't leave now, she will never leave at all. The tension in that escape is insane. Every shadow feels alive, every creak feels like a death sentence, and when she finally makes it to the car where her sister is waiting, Adrian comes sprinting out of the house like the world's most terrifying Olympic athlete, punching the window and dragging her back like she's a dropped shopping bag he refuses to let go of, and right away the movie says, "Buckle up. This man is evil on a PhD, billionaire, genius, manipulative, Silicon Valley level." And then boom, cut to Cecilia living with her friend James, basically shaking like a chihuahua at the sound of anything louder than a whisper, sleeping with the covers up to her eyes, and checking the windows 50 times a night, because the trauma is real, and Elisabeth Moss plays it with such raw fear it almost feels too real, like we're watching someone's actual nightmare in motion. But then we hear Adrian is dead, apparently unalived himself, left Cecilia millions of dollars, and is gone forever. And everybody expects her to magically heal because the bad guy is gone, when in reality the movie is just clearing the runway for the true horror to begin, because Cecilia knows deep in her bones Adrian would never let her go, not in life, not in death, not even in the afterlife if he found a way to code himself into a ghost. And so when things in the house start disappearing, pans start making noise, doors open by themselves, invisible footsteps drag the blankets away, and the stove conveniently catches fire at exactly the wrong moment, Cecilia does what every horror protagonist must do. She goes from, "Maybe I'm overreacting," to "Nope, my dead ex invented invisibility tech and is now haunting me like the sci-fi demon he always wanted to be." But of course no one believes her. Not James, not her sister, not the lawyer brother who's about as comforting as a wet sock. Everyone treats her like she's spiraling, unstable, broken, and possibly losing her mind, which honestly is the whole point of psychological abuse. Even when you're right, you look wrong, and Adrian planned this like a villain who read the manual on gaslighting twice. What makes this movie so good is the way it weaponizes silence. Most horror movies rely on jump scares and loud noises, but this one says, "No, we're going to make you stare at empty corners and feel scared anyway." Because after a while you start scanning the frame yourself, checking the background, checking the shadows, checking the chair in the corner, waiting for invisible Adrian to breathe on someone or knock something over or stand too close, and the movie never tells you when he's there. You just feel it, and that is terrifying. Then we get one of the best sequences in modern horror, the breakfast scene. Cecilia is talking, trying to reconnect with her sister, and suddenly, boom, the knife floats up, slices her sister's throat, drops into Cecilia's hand, and everyone gasps because they didn't just kill a side character. They executed her in the most shocking, vicious, impossible way, and framed Cecilia for it in one move like Adrian is auditioning for evil mastermind of the century. She gets dragged off to a psychiatric hospital, drugged, restrained, and told she's losing her mind, while invisible Adrian casually beats down cops, throws people across hallways, and moves like a glitching video game enemy with a cheat code. And this hospital rampage is peak adrenaline because Cecilia, despite being drugged, terrified, and handcuffed, manages to fight back with the type of desperation only a woman hunted by her dead billionaire ex can summon. And still, the scariest part is not the action. It's the moment Adrian reveals his real plan. He wants Cecilia pregnant. He wants control. He wants ownership. He wants her whole life under his command even after death. And it hits like a punch to the soul, because you realize this was never about murder. It was about domination. Everywhere she goes, he follows. Everything she loves, he destroys. Everyone she trusts, he isolates. This is abuse turned into a sci-fi nightmare. And the movie keeps leveling up, because after she escapes, after she uncovers the truth about the invisibility suit, after she discovers Adrian's creepy brother was also in on the plan, and after she nearly gets her friend's daughter attacked by invisible hands, which was one of the most stressful scenes ever, Cecilia decides enough is enough. She goes back to Adrian's house not as prey, but as the final boss. She confronts him, tricking him with the same invisibility suit he used to destroy her life, and in one chilling, cathartic, cinematic moment, Adrian is found with his throat slit. Suicide. Except it's the most suspicious self-harm in movie history, and Cecilia walks out wearing the invisibility suit herself, finally in control, finally free, finally untouchable. The film's ending is iconic, not because she defeats him, but because she beats him at his own game. She becomes the ghost he feared. She becomes the invisible force he can't manipulate. She becomes the nightmare. And as her friend James sees her walk out with that cold expression, he realizes what every audience member already felt. Sometimes justice doesn't come from the law, or from forgiveness, or from healing. It comes from finally taking the power back from the person who stole it. This movie is not just horror. It's a commentary on modern abuse, emotional trauma, controlling relationships, and the lengths some people will go to escape the invisible chains someone else put around them. The sound design, the directing, the tension, the minimalist scares, they all work together to remind you that the scariest villain is the one you can't see, but feel everywhere. Elisabeth Moss gives one of the best performances in horror this decade, shaking, sweating, panicking, fighting, surviving, reclaiming her identity moment by moment, and the audience lives every heartbeat with her. Lee Hwanel takes a classic monster and reinvents it, not as a sci-fi experiment gone wrong, but as a metaphor for real-world abuse, where the monster doesn't need fangs or claws to be terrifying, just manipulation, control, and enough intelligence to make you question your own reality. And that is why The Invisible Man works so well. It's grounded, raw, emotional, brutal, and way too relatable, because everyone has dealt with a person who left invisible scars. The movie captures the fear of not being believed, the pain of being isolated, the frustration of knowing the truth but being dismissed, and the strength it takes to stand up anyway. So when Cecilia finally walks away in that last shot, wearing the suit, reclaiming everything Adrian stole, it's not just a victory, it's a statement. You cannot control me anymore. You cannot define me. You cannot haunt me. And I will never be invisible again. The Invisible Man, 2020, is a masterpiece not because of the horror, but because it understands that the scariest monsters are real. They hide in plain sight. And sometimes the only way to defeat them is to become stronger than their shadow, louder than their silence, and braver than their invisibility. This movie is tense, brilliant, emotional, terrifying, satisfying, and the kind of horror that lingers long after the credits roll, because it's not just about an invisible man, it's about surviving one.